This is the watchman giving a clarion call. And boy, oh boy, the numbers I've been waiting for have finally been updated by a friend of mine at smallgold.com. That's a site which I highly recommend for our Shield brothers for the informational side of gold and silver. An excellent resource. Now, these figures paint the picture of silver demand within India in the latter half of 2015. And this is the key which many pundits have inexplicably been silent on as of late. The silver demand in India. Now, I've been hoping the figures would be stellar, and let me tell you, these numbers don't disappoint. It's been my belief all along that it's actually India that's the key to ending the market rigging in silver, perhaps permanently. That case boils down to a singular question that I'll get to in just a few minutes, but first, let's go over the meat and potatoes of their insatiable, unquenchable silver demand, shall we? Through the month of November, the Indian people have now imported, last year, over 7,461 tons of silver. Put another way, roughly 240 million silver ounces. That's nearly 1/3 of all mined silver on Earth in 2015. And just think, it doesn't even include the month of December, which they've yet to report. Now, the estimates for the total year, if annualized through December, come in at roughly 7,759 tons, just under 8,000 tons. And that's a full 10% higher than the previous year, which was also a record. Now, it could be even higher than that. It could hit 8,000 tons. We don't know yet. But this makes 3 years in a row that India has set new records in silver every single year. Now, that's fantastic. But take a look at this chart from my friend here. You can see that Indian silver stacking went full-blown nuts back in 2013, basically tripling their previous year's stacking from 2,000 tons to over 6,000. Now that was a sea change. What happened that year to cause that sea change? Well, that was the year that the cabal took silver under the price figure of the important $26 mark, which caused a cascade of paper silver liquidation as the banks fed on all the weak longs who were literally fleeing for the mountains. It took price to roughly $16 to $17. Now that in itself caused enormous stampede into silver for people in India who are good value buyers. But then the Indian government did something which I firmly believe kicked Indian silver demand into a whole nother level. It set it into overdrive. And it hasn't been turned off yet. And the market riggers didn't expect this to happen, I believe. You see, that was the year that Indian gold buying also went nuts, and it was eating too far, too fast into London's gold stocks. So, the Indian government implemented the 80-20 import-export rule on gold, and, this is key, put a 10% tax, tariff if you will, on gold and silver. Basically a 10% penalty tariff. Now, think about this. 10% on cheap gold, which at the time was still, the 1400s, 1300s, still represented an extra $130 to $140 on the overall spot price. And that's a big deal, right? Because gold's already a fairly high-priced asset to begin with. But silver is an entirely different story. You see, 10% extra on 18 to 20 bucks? It's just $2. It's an enormous difference and a much sounder play based on dollar value considerations. And I firmly believe it was this precious metals tax scheme coupled with the insanely low prices that absolutely overdrive this literal frenzy in silver buying in India. It shot off like a rocket in 2013 and hasn't looked back yet. Now remember, Indians have been the victims of inflation many times, brought about by their very daft and dense government. They don't trust their government. and that's enough to get them to buy in the first place. But their religious and cultural traditions, especially around their wedding season of Diwali, is what drives a great deal of gift giving for dowries, for marriages, and even for births. They see that gold and silver are the perfect gifts for helping long-term social statuses for loved ones. And it's because of this valuing gold and silver as wealth, as social status, that makes Indian gold demand so different and so inelastic from other peoples and countries. It's so impervious to so many other considerations. Now, that 10% tax, for all intents and purposes, priced Indians out of gold. Yes, they could still afford it in many cases, but why go for the gold when silver was now the better bargain? And therein lies the clue to what the future holds in silver. And this is the question that I want to posit again to our stackers. I've asked it before. It's been a while. I will ask it again. Now, nearly 8,000 tons of silver was stacked in 2015. Monstrous. That's a monstrous figure. And if this buying spree was triggered by a price cut on and a tax which priced some out of gold, then brothers, think of this. What on earth will happen in India when the price spike to end all price spikes occurs in gold? What happens when gold spikes to, just for example, say $5,000 or $10,000 per ounce or even higher? Should that occur, only the very wealthy in India will be able to afford gold at all. Nearly 1 billion Indians who favored gold before will be priced out of it, perhaps permanently. And what will Indians do then? What will those billion people start purchasing to make lavish jewelry and necklaces out of? Will they make them out of paper rupees? Will you see brides ridiculously walking down with their new groom wearing rupees around their neck? No. Will they simply stash away stacks of currency? Or will they give Bitcoin necklaces as crypto necklaces as fancy wedding gifts? Not hardly. Not hardly. No, they're not hardwired for that. Okay, what I mean is this. If those people are going to keep giving dowries and precious metals, but will no longer have gold as a viable option, where do they turn when they're priced out of gold for good? My friends, they will turn to silver. Tens and hundreds of millions of people will all be buying silver for their weddings who never bought it before. The Indians don't know it yet, but the golden era of gold-themed weddings is nearing its end. Soon it will only be for the extravagantly wealthy. Indians, remember, spend about 8% of their average annual income on gold. They save like crazy for gold. Okay, but this means their personal savings cannot be bumped up much more. Okay, let's say they doubled their savings to 15, 16%. But if gold is 5 to 10 times higher, are they going to slave away for an entire year to buy one measly gram of gold? I don't think so. I think the silver-themed weddings are just beginning. Even at many multiples of today's silver price, that's hundreds of dollars per ounce. Even a 4-digit silver price would bring silver about to the price of gold now, where they're still buying nearly 1,000 tons a year. It would not dissuade them from saving in silver or creating exquisite silver jewelry. That means that 8% that Indians save to buy gold with will be used to buy silver with. It is going to happen. Now think about that. That will demand many thousands of tons of silver per year, especially in the interim, especially in the transition, well into the future, in order to keep their traditions going. Now, for those who say, well, Watchman, this huge surge in Indian silver buying is simply industrial demand. For their infrastructure, they're not stacking hundreds of millions of ounces in monetary bullion form. Friend, if you say that, that is a statement of pure ignorance, and you have not done your research. For example, I'd like to read you a squib from a businessstandard.com article, which actually breaks down the precise percentages and numbers of Indian silver demand in the forms that it takes. Quote, Rising imports of silver indicate rapid change in consumer preferences over the past 3 years since its price started falling. Unlike in the past, consumers see a resale value in any form of silver purchase, including jewelry, artifacts, and investment products such as coins and bars. A large chunk of imported silver goes for retail consumption for jewelry and artifacts. The industry has witnessed a number of imitation jewelry consumers diverting towards silver ornaments due to falling prices. As a consequence, there has been a rapid shift in silver consumption over the past 10 years. Global silver demand for industrial use has slumped to 54% of global output in 2015 versus the near 70% it was in 2005, and India is no exception. Okay. Similarly, demand from silverware jewelry has risen from 25 to 26%, and bars and coins from 5% to nearly 20%. Whoa. End quote. Whoa. Friends, what does this mean? It means that silver as savings, as wealth, as status, is quickly returning to India. It is their roots, and they're returning to their roots. And it's complementing gold status in this coveted spot. And one day, it will replace gold spot, not because they don't like gold, but because you cannot buy what you cannot afford. And very soon, gold will be unaffordable to 1 billion Indians, and that 1/7 of humanity alone can and will tip the apple cart for the banking cabal and make their crimes in silver nigh on impossible going forward. And when that happens, there will not be enough silver for quite a while, as the last 6 years of carnage in the mining industry has face stomped any future projects and expansions there, making this supply shortage a persistent thing that will go on for at least several years when the rubber meets the road. And I truly hope that when this all changes, that when this sea change, this permanent sea change occurs, and that time comes upon us, I truly, genuinely hope that you, every one of you listening to this right now, will be one of the happy few who stood your ground, who believed in your convictions, and laid aside this unbelievable future wealth for next to nothing. This is the Watchman signing off. Stay vigilant and bring the fight to them.